You know that cozy sweater you love, or maybe that t-shirt you basically live in? Well, the way they feel, that stretch, that comfort, it all comes down to this surprisingly elegant process that turns just a single thread into a flexible fabric. Today, we're going to unravel the art and science of knitting to see exactly how it all works.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll uncover knitting's secret power. Then we'll get into the fabric's DNA, its core building blocks. After that, we'll look at the four-step dance that creates every single stitch. See how we go from knitting by hand to giant machines. And finally, we'll wrap up with exactly why we love our knitted clothes so much.
All right, first up, knitting's secret power. We're talking about the hidden structure that gives your favorite clothes that special something.
I mean, have you ever really stopped to think about it? You can pull on your t-shirt and it just snaps right back into shape. But, a crisp woven shirt, maybe like a formal one, it just doesn't do that. So what's the deal? The answer isn't just the yarn. It's all about how that yarn is put together. And this is the absolute heart of it all. See, when you weave a fabric, think about sturdy denim jeans or even a traditional khadi cloth, you're using two different sets of yarn to create a tight, stable grid. But knitting is totally different. It uses just one continuous piece of yarn to create a series of interlocking loops. And those loops are the entire secret. They've got room to move, to shift, and to stretch, which is what gives knitted fabric that signature elasticity.
Okay, so this whole loop structure is key. But how does it really work? To get it, we need to learn the basic language of knitting. Let's call it the fabric's DNA. Everything, and I mean absolutely everything in a knitted fabric begins right here with this one thing, the loop. It is the fundamental atom of this entire world. And it's not just a simple circle of yarn. It's this dynamic little structure that's made when one loop gets pulled right through another one. This one simple action is then repeated millions of times to make a single piece of clothing. Now, when you start stacking these loops one on top of the other, you create a vertical column. In the world of knitting, we call this a wale. If you look really closely at any simple t-shirt, you can actually see these little V-shaped columns running up and down. Yep, those are the wales.
So if a wale is the vertical part, the course is the horizontal part. A course is just one complete row of loops that run side to side, right across the fabric's width. So you're basically building the fabric course by course, and each new course makes all the wales a little bit longer.
Here's a simple way to remember it, especially if you know a little bit about weaving. You can think of the vertical wales as being like the warp threads, and the horizontal courses are like the weft threads. It's the same idea, a structure with two directions. It's just achieved in this really different, much more flexible way. Okay, so we know what a loop is now, but how is one actually made? Well, let's break down the mechanics in what I like to call the four-step knitting dance. This is the secret to how every single loop comes to life. It's this really precise and beautiful sequence. First up, step one is clearing. The needle basically pushes the old loop down and out of the way. Then, step two, yarn feeding. A new piece of yarn is placed right into the needle's hook. Step three is where the magic really happens. Loop formation. The needle pulls that new yarn straight through the middle of the old loop. And finally, step four, knockover. The old loop just slides right off the needle, leaving a brand new one in its place.
And the main thing to get here is that this four-part dance, clearing, feeding, forming, and knocking over, just happens again and again and again. It doesn't matter if it's someone knitting by hand or a giant industrial machine. This is the fundamental process that builds fabric, one single loop at a time. Speaking of machines, let's zoom out from that tiny four-step dance and look at all the different ways we do it, from simple knitting needles all the way up to massive factory equipment. The technology really runs the gamut. You've got, of course, the classic hand-knitting needles that started it all. Then you get into the industrial stuff.
flat knitting machines, super fast circular machines, and then these highly specialized warp knitting machines with names like tricot and rachel, which are used for really complex stuff like the fabrics in car interiors or high-performance sportswear.
So, that t-shirt we keep talking about, it was almost certainly made on a circular knitting machine. In big textile centers like Tirupur or Ludhiana, these things are the high-speed workhorses of the industry. They knit fabric in a continuous tube at a mind-boggling speed. We're talking hundreds of meters of fabric an hour. It's how we can make things like t-shirts so efficiently.
Now, on the other hand, you have flat knitting machines. Just like the name says, they produce fabric in flat sheets. This method is perfect for creating really precisely shaped pieces that can then be sewn together to make things like sweaters and cardigans. It allows for much more intricate designs, and you end up wasting less material.
And that brings us right back to where we started. We've seen the what and the how. So now, let's talk about the most important part, the why. What's the big payoff for this incredible looped structure?
Well, all that technical stuff we just went through results in this: elasticity, softness, flexibility, and just pure comfort. The space that's built right into the loops lets the fabric stretch and breathe in a way that woven fabrics just can't. And that makes knits the absolute champion for casual clothes, for sportswear, for anything where you just need to be able to move.
But, there's always a trade-off, right? The very same structure that gives us all that wonderful stretch can also make the fabric a little less stable. A knitted sweater might lose its shape over time or snag more easily than a woven short. It's kind of the price we pay for all that comfort and flexibility.
So this all leaves us with a really fascinating question. We've pretty much mastered knitting for our clothes, but this core idea, creating strong yet flexible looped structures, is a universal principle. So what's next? Could we be looking at knitted arteries for medical implants? Or maybe even knitted materials strong enough to be used in buildings? It really makes you wonder where this ancient technique is going to pop up next and shape our future.